see clearly shades of black and white, searching for the light. But you're the final piece, honey to my bee, strange as it seems. You mean something, you're worth loving. You bring all my colors to life. Thought I saw the way, feeling through the dark, holding on to my heart. Skies were always gray, things weren't ever right, but you came and showed me on that night. You mean something, you're worth loving. You bring all my colors to life. Now I look around and I'm brought to tears, 'cause you're by my side and the color is you mean something, you're worth loving. You bring all my colors to
Well, go on home, just take the wind. Open up the door and sink your teeth right in. You've been begging for some time. Don't you let this pass you by. Tidy.
Welcome, welcome, everyone. Hope your Sunday is going well. Feel free to stand with us if you'd like. We're going to sing a few songs together. Joyful, joyful Lord, we adore thee. God of glory, Lord of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before thee, opening to the Son wellspring of the joy of living, ocean depth of happy rest. Loving Mother, Christ our brother, let your light upon us shine. Teach us how to love each other, lift us to the joy divine. Let us join the mighty chorus, which the morning stars began. God's own love is reigning o'er us, joining people hand in hand. Ever singing, march we onward, victors in the midst of strife. Joyful music leads us onward in the triumph song of life. May you be well, living in peace. May you feel loved, happy and free. I open my heart to however you are, 'cause here in the heart of love, there's room for us all. So as we play this song, this next time we sing through that, I want you to just maybe even close your eyes and picture someone that you love dearly. Picture someone that is so easy to love. If you want to sing this with us and sing it to them, feel free. May you be well, living in peace. May you feel loved, happy and free. I open my heart to however you are, 'cause here in the heart of love, there's room for us all. Now as we sing this next one, maybe picture someone you don't know very well. Maybe an acquaintance, someone you just met, someone you see occasionally. Pick someone to sing to in your mind, in your heart. May you be well, living in peace. May you feel loved, happy and free. I open my heart to however you are, 'cause here in the heart of love, there's room for us all. All right, now we're going to find a little bit of an edge. Picture someone who is hard to love right now. Someone who might not be so easy to sing to. We're going to sing it to them. May you be well. everyone to everybody, everywhere. May you be well, living in peace. May you feel loved, happy and free. I open my heart to however you are. 'Cause here in the heart of love, sing that again. Here in the heart of love, here in the heart of love, there's room for us all. God, I thank you for that truth, that there's room for us all, that your love is big enough for all of us, all the parts of us, all the diverse expressions of us. And I pray that we feel that truth today, that it can sink in. We can know that we are loved, we are wanted, we are seen. We give this time to you. I want to know you, Lord, like I know a friend. I want to know you, Lord. I want to know you, Lord, like I know a friend. I want to know you, Lord. Sing that again. I want to know you, Lord, like I know a friend. I want to know you, Lord. I want to know you, Lord, like I know a friend. I want to know you, Lord. So I'm laying down all my religion. I'm laying down. I want to know you, Lord. I'm laying down all my religion. I'm laying down. I want to know you, Lord. I used to think that I could box you in, but I'm laying down. I want to know you, Lord. I used to think that I could box you in, but I'm laying down. I want to know you, Lord. So I'm laying down all my religion. I'm laying down. I want to know you, Lord. I'm laying down all my religion. I'm laying down. I want to know you, Lord. Lord, I've been told to be ashamed. Lord, I've been told I don't measure up. Lord, I've been told I'm not good enough, but you're here with me. I reach out and you find me in the say no amount of untruths can separate us. I reach out and you find me in the dust, and you say no amount of untruths can separate us. I will rejoice. I will rejoice in the simple gospel. I will rejoice in you, Lord. I will rejoice in the simple gospel. I will rejoice in you, Lord. I will rejoice in the simple gospel. I will rejoice in you, Lord. I reach out and you find me in the dust, and you say no amount of untruths can separate us. I will rejoice in the simple gospel. I will rejoice in you, Lord. I will rejoice in the simple gospel. I will rejoice in you, Lord. Amen. Feel free to have a seat. I'm going to welcome up my friend Talon, who's going to share some announcements with us. Let's give some snaps for Talon.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Commons. The Commons is a faith community where people from all walks of life, different backgrounds, ages, identities, and viewpoints are all truly welcome. Whether this is your first time with us or if you've been part of this community for years, we are really glad that you're here. If you would like to support the life and the work of the Commons financially, you can give online or you can find envelopes in the back of the pews. Every bit of support is deeply appreciated and helps make this community possible. We've got several important events coming up, and we'll walk through those on the slides. If you have any questions, feel free to come up after service to the front and talk with someone, or you can find more information on our website. So the first one is our youth group is doing a fundraiser to raise money for summer camp, and they need our help. As many of you know, the Flagstaff Youth Co-op serves our middle school and high school students, meeting every other Sunday evening for games, lessons, and discussion. They are currently doing an envelope fundraiser that's located in the back. Each envelope has a different amount of money written on it, and there are 50 different envelopes on that board. Please feel free to check it out and choose as many envelopes as you want that are labeled with the amount that you'd like to give. You can put cash in the envelope and return it by May 31st, or make an electronic donation through Zelle. There are other ways to get connected with our community as well. For our college students and young adults, we've got a reason to celebrate on May 15th. That's going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. This is a space to come together and celebrate the small things in life, because it's not about accomplishment, it's about joy. Next is our ladies and non-binary friends. You are invited to a craft and sip on Saturday, May 16th from 4 to 6 p.m. at Jackie's house. We'll be making craft cocktails, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, and enjoying time together, hopefully outside if the weather is permitting. So bring a jacket just in case. Also, feel free to bring an appetizer to share. Then on May 17th, join us after service for a community potluck from 5:30 to 7 p.m. Bring something to share if you can, but it's not required. Just come and enjoy food and great company. We also have the Federated Community Monthly Dinner on Thursday, May 21st from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. It'll be a barbecue dinner, and everyone is welcome to come and be a part of it. And finally, for men and non-binary friends, they are doing a whiskey night group, which will be meeting May 4th and May 20th. For more details, you can text Blaine Henderson or Joel at the numbers provided on screen. One last note, our setup and teardown team is a really important part of what we do. We share our space with the Federated community, and we have always shared spaces. And so this team really helps set everything up that we do on Sundays, and then also resets the space for our Federated friends. If you are looking for a simple, tangible way that you can help serve our community, we'd love to have you join our team. And if you want to stay up to date on events, community giving, job resources, connections, interest groups, etc., you can join us on the Church Center app. Thanks again for being here with us today, and I will hand the mic over to Charlie.
Thank you, Talon. Trey, can you leave that slide up there forever? I think that I'm rarely surprised at the Commons, but that picture of Ross really blessed me today. So as I'm speaking today, I want you to just imagine that he's telling you that this message is for you. He's recruiting you for Setup Teardown. That picture is amazing. I just want it to wash over me. Oh, thank you for that. Was that you, Olivia? Did you do that? Thank you. You did something well, so well. Well, I'm so glad you're here with us today. Thank you for visiting. We do very much hope that you feel welcome today. I had the great privilege this morning of speaking at Federated. Their interim pastor's out of town as they're transitioning, so I got to speak with our sister church this morning, which was a real gift and a lot of fun. So I thought we would pray for them today. That's our tradition. We love praying for other churches in town, so if you're the praying type, join me, and we're going to pray for them. God, thank you for this beautiful community that we live in. Thank you for a day like today filled with natural beauty and warmth and clouds. And I'm thankful to have spent time with our siblings that gather in this space, that share this space with us out of the goodness and love of their hearts. We are so thankful. We're so filled with gratitude that we get to share this place that's a holy place of meeting and gathering. Thanks for their like-mindedness with us, their vision for justice and inclusion, and we pray that they'll know how loved they are. And we also pray as we open up a section of Matthew today that you will open up our hearts and minds in Jesus' name. Amen. So I often try to give out bonus points to all of you when you do something special, but I'm doing 2 churches today, so I feel like I should get extra bonus points for 2 sermons. That also means that you're getting like the B-League sermon. I put everything into this morning's sermon, so this is just like whatever's left over, so get ready for that. We're actually in the middle of a 3rd week of a series of a discussion about love, and it's one I'm really excited about. Would anybody mind shutting that door, actually? That's like really loud. Thank you. Oh, you're already on it, Megan. I love it. I'm about to lose my mind because of the trains. Yeah. The series that we're talking about brings me a lot of excitement, and I mentioned this last week, because there is a simplicity and a childlikeness to the nature of this whole experiment of spirituality and religion when it's rooted in love. This whole discussion is called Love Actually, and it's the idea kind of based loosely on the movie that love actually is all around us, and we've been talking about different elements in this sort of crescendo of learning love, from the simplest things, loving our neighbor and loving ourselves, to today we're going to be talking about loving our enemies, and next week we'll end our time on Mother's Day talking about a radically different kind of love. But I was thinking about something that I saw last weekend, maybe 2 weekends ago at a track meet. You know, in track season, you're going to get a track story eventually. But I was down at somewhere in Phoenix, I don't remember, a couple weeks ago, and I was near the long jump pit. I guess Blaze was long jumping. And sometimes when you're around the field events, I know not all of you are track and field people, but sometimes long jump and high jump and pole vault, a particular athlete really wants extra help. They're feeling like they want some more energy, so they'll start a clap and get the crowd clapping for like their last long jump or their last pole vault to get adrenaline. Have any of you ever been to a track meet and seen this happen before? See a couple hands out there. I personally sort of hate it, but whatever. You do your own thing. It's like, I just would never do that. I wouldn't want like the whole crowd like clapping for me, adding pressure. But there was this one kid that I, for no reason whatsoever other than judgmentalness, thought he was kind of cocky, and I think he got the crowd clapping for his long jump. I was like, oh, great, here we go. And so he comes barreling down the long jump thing as fast as he can, and he takes off, but as he hit the long jump board, something hit wrong, and he kind of like spread his legs sideways, and his toes caught in the sand, and he just went, his face just buried in the sand. I think it's maybe the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, everyone was laughing. So I know you all think I'm a terrible person, but I mean, he asked for it, right? But then I was really interested when he got up and he was like whacking the sand off his face. I was really curious as a person how he would handle it. I was laughing a lot, but he looked around, and it's hard when you're a high school student, you have all this pressure and people looking. But then it took him a minute, but then he started laughing, and then he went to his friends, and they were all kind of giving high fives. But I found out later that it was not my perceived, what I thought was going on wasn't happening. In fact, it was his friends that started the clap to embarrass him, and that derailed him, and then he face planted. So then I just felt sorry for him, because he wasn't arrogant at all. His friends were just messing with him, and I was like, these are the best friends ever. I love them. And then I was thinking about, and I promise this is eventually going to tie somewhere, when I had a sort of similar thing happen to me when I was in high school. I was in a one-act play. In Texas, we called it one-act play. It's fine arts or, theater, whatever you want to call it. And we had a competitive team that would go, you would perform a play. And my freshman year, I had a very small part in a Shakespeare play called The Tempest. And I love The Tempest. I actually love Shakespeare's plays. And in my particular role, I was horrified. And you have to remember, you know that I'm a different person now. But when I was a 15-year-old freshman in high school, I was a very sweet Christian boy. And I was very serious about my faith. And I very much did not like cuss words and thought they were to send me straight to hell. And in the play, my short part that I had, there was a line in Shakespeare where my character had to say the phrase horse piss, and I was horrified, morally horrified, that I would be called by this liberal woke bastion of a theater program to betray my values on stage. And I can remember truly sweating and being so scared. And my middle brother, not my kind brother, Trey, but the other one that lives in Montana, he was in the play as well. And he knew that I was terrified of it. And the night before the first practice, I decided I couldn't do it, and I was just going to say horse pee instead of horse piss because I could live with myself. And so my middle brother found out about that, and he told everyone. And so everyone was waiting backstage for this moment where I was too chicken to say that. And so when my line came and I said horse pee, I mean, the entire theater just started laughing at me, just like that long jump kid, just like, what a failure of a human with his high morals, what a loser. And I was just thinking, it's such a bad feeling when you're in high school and you're insecure anyway, and everyone's laughing at you, and somebody did that to you, right? Well, within the play of Tempest, there is actually Shakespeare's greatest picture of the idea of loving your enemy. I was thinking about that long jump kid laughing and loving his friends. I was thinking about loving my brother. But in the play of The Tempest, one of the main characters, his name is Prospero. In fact, the whole plot of the play is about this man who was betrayed by another man, Antonio, and he was cast away to this island. He had lost everything and betrayed. But then the storm, the tempest that brought about all the drama of the play, brought all of his enemies shipwrecked to his shore, where he had learned the magic of the island. He had become a powerful, almost wizard-like figure because he had intuitively got in touch with the island's inhabitant and Caliban, all these beautiful images. And then at his disposal were his enemies. And so he started to mess with them and separate them with his powers. But sort of the whole arc of the play is this moment where he finally says, it's the rarest when you choose virtue over vengeance, and he has mercy on his enemies. He doesn't exact vengeance. And then he breaks his staff. He gets rid of all his control and power, and he's restored into this communal relationship. Even though he was in a position of power, he loved his enemies. So that is the hardest I've ever tried to connect a sermon theme to a story from my life. And I am so proud of myself that I got us back to loving your enemies from a Shakespeare play. I actually believe, I really do, that one of the most awkward and powerful and controversial and unique teachings of this ancient Jewish rabbi, Jesus of Nazareth, is this ancient idea to love your enemies. Years ago, when we did a series called School of Love, we sort of built up on this idea of loving yourself, loving your neighbor, and we talked about loving your enemy as a sort of PhD level type love, a type of community engagement award. When you get to that place, you're experiencing something transcendent, something healing, something hopeful. What I want to do today is we look at this particular idea of love, and it actually is possible, I would say, with you loving your enemy, is I want to dive into some really important core ideas that can make a difference in our life when we consider what I think is a very dangerous idea. I want to start by simply reading the passage where Jesus talks about this in Matthew chapter 5. And this is part of the Sermon on the Mount. It's quite famous. And this is what he says in verse 42. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Now, he's sort of loosely referring to a section of Leviticus 19. And it's kind of interesting to go back and read a section of that Levitical law because there is a very clear message in the even more ancient Jewish culture of loving your neighbor that's explicit there. And it's also talking about loving your brother, and it's talking about people who are in your same tribe. But it certainly seems to exclude people outside of that. So Jesus is saying, you've heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and send rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Don't even the pagans do that? This is a really interesting section to me. Obviously, the love your enemies part is where we're going to camp. But I always love to point out, especially on the Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus uses this repeated rhetorical device where he says, you have heard it said, and then he quotes something from the Jewish scriptures, and then he basically says something the total opposite of that to do, or something extremely expanded from the original understanding of that. Because Jesus even held scriptures in the way that they are artful, that they are like light in a prism, that they are for our good, not to enslave us. He understood that an ancient text, he understood that a rich tradition, he understood that the voice of ancestors were not to be taken as a hard code, but to be taken as a starting point for things that could actually transform our lives and hearts. I love the freedom with which Jesus talked about the scriptures in that way. It's also one of the things the religious leaders hated about him. But then he says to love your enemies and pray for those that persecute you. One of the most famous stories that there, so that you can be children of your Father in heaven. Now, this entire thing has been probably one of the most important and famous things that any orator has ever shared, the Sermon on the Mount as a whole. But the idea of loving your enemy is something that most people generally know that our actual faith tradition teaches. But here's what I want to talk about a little bit before I get into the weeds of love your enemy. The thing that I admire the most, especially about Jesus of Nazareth, is that he taught this, which was a bold and risky thing to teach. But more significantly, in the pages of these Greco-Roman biopics, we see that he lived this. Because what we see is Jesus encounters enemy after enemy. He's even already listing them here. He never doesn't list his enemies. He's saying even tax collectors do this. He's talking about even the rich capitalist people who are taking advantage of you. Even the people in the system that are using money to take care of you. They know how to love. And he's going to encounter a tax collector named Zacchaeus. There's a story in Luke chapter 19 where he encounters one of these enemies because this enemy is stealing from poor people. And what does Jesus do to this enemy? He invites himself over for dinner. He calls him by name, says, Zacchaeus, come down out of this tree. And then he spends time with him, building a relationship with him. And what happens is that tax collector, that greedy capitalist of old, repents. He means he changes his mind. It means he shifts the way he exists in the world and gives back all the money that he had taken. There's reparations. There's restoration. There's justice because Jesus loved his enemy. Jesus also encountered enemies like the religious leaders who thought they had trapped the woman caught in adultery. It's, of course, never the man that was involved there, but the religious leaders who had the law on their side and quoted every chapter and verse of the Old Testament that they should stone this woman. And Jesus loved his enemy by disarming them. With his wit and his questions, he said, you who is without sin can cast the first stone. With his love, with his wit, with his speaking truth to power, he disarmed them, and he changed the enemies. And poof, poof, one by one, the stones hit the ground. All the way up to the end of his life, Jesus lived this. There was the last week of Christ where he washed the feet of his disciples, one of the dirtiest, grossest things if you're not a foot person, but if you're an ancient Near Eastern person, you understand the symbolism of washing these sandaled feet, the humility of it. And of course, we know he washed the feet of Judas that night, who he knew had betrayed him. He very much was aware of who had taken silver coins to turn him into the very power structures that would kill him, and yet he gently washed his feet alongside every other disciple that night because he loved his enemies. Later in the garden, as a spurion, which is a Greek word of soldiers, literally 180 of Rome's fiercest warriors surround Jesus with religious leaders all around. One of Jesus' friends, Peter, who almost always gets things wrong, decided he was going to choose violence instead of loving the enemy, and he strikes a man named Malchus and cuts his ear off, and Jesus goes to his enemy, and he heals his enemy. And he tells Peter to put his sword away, or all who live by the sword will die by the sword, because he was nonviolent, because he was restorative, because he loved his enemy. He stood before Pontius Pilate. He stood before Caiaphas' enemies. And you know what he wasn't? A doormat. He wasn't weak. He wasn't insecure. He chose his words carefully. He spoke truth to power. And he was ultimately executed by the state as an enemy of the state. And when we talk about the idea of loving your enemy, and especially the idea of if Jesus lived out his very teaching, I think this is one of the most important things to understand. Jesus was absolutely in no way was he killed for his kindness. Rome didn't kill people because they just had a nice positive message. Religious leaders weren't threatened by people who were just part of the system and got along. Jesus was killed by a combination of two tempest storm forces that came together, the Roman Empire and the Jewish religious leader, these two powerful forces, because he was a threat to both of them, because he turned over tables. He didn't hurt people, he hurt money. He hurt systems. He spoke truth to power. So there's three things that I want us to start a discussion about loving your enemy because I think it's so hard. This is the hardest point to begin with. This is the hardest for me when I grew up the way I did. The first point that I want you to think about with loving your enemies, this one was so hard for me. You should have enemies. This is something I didn't understand when I read this as a kid because I was a sweet boy. I wouldn't even say piss. And so it was really easy for me to get along with people, except for the people that make fun of me, I guess. But the idea is I didn't have many enemies because I never actually stood up for anything. I didn't stand up when I needed to for people who were being oppressed or bullied, because if I had, I would have had enemies. If you don't have enemies, there's a very good chance that you're okay with a status quo where people are getting hurt. There's a very good chance that we're not using our voice whatsoever. In fact, I almost think of it in three different categories. You might have enemies because you are the victim of oppression. You might have an enemy who is actually oppressing you. It might be an ex-spouse. It might be a system. It might be, I have no idea what it might be, a financial oppression. It might be a racial oppression. It might be because of your identity. There's all sorts of things where you're being oppressed and you have an enemy. And you might have enemies because you see that going on in the world and you speak truth to power. And you say, not on my watch, or not in my community, or I'll put my body on the line to make sure this body is safe. So you make enemies with those in power. I'm afraid that the third category is the most dangerous when you have no enemies because you're not oppressed and you're privileged, and it hasn't been yet moving enough in the forces of love in your heart to feel the empathy to take the risk to make enemies by speaking truth to power. Point one, we need to have enemies. Jesus had enemies because he spoke truth to power. And he didn't choose violence. He disarmed, he broke apart systems, he radically forgave and loved, and he found himself at the edge of human torture with forgiveness on his lips. One of the most poetic, literary / metaphorical / physical things that has ever moved any human being, to be physically tortured and have on your lips, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. The very system that was killing Christ. Now, the first point is have enemies. The second point that I think is absolutely crucial about loving enemies is we always love enemies with boundaries. That's exactly what Jesus did. One of the things that I have seen twisted in the colonial history of religious hierarchy is people in power and privilege using this exact teaching of Christianity to ask people who are oppressed to love the people that are oppressing them and to just forgive them and have no justice, no boundaries, no reparations. It's kind of like an abusive husband who's telling his wife that she's not being loving and forgiving enough as she's trapped in this system. Jesus was always on the side of the oppressed. Jesus was always filled with the truth and understanding that love always has boundaries. Jesus had a strength and a confidence and a security when he loved his enemies that allowed him to disarm their systems, be it through his wit or his economic nonviolent protests or his actual healing touch of love or forgiveness. He always had a strength of setting boundaries and speaking truth to power. I wish that I hadn't seen this so much as a pastor in the personal playground of life. I think that it's easy to think about it in systems and wars and great examples of forgiveness. But I think in my last 16 years or so of being a pastor, I've mostly seen this in broken relationships, mostly broken romantic relationships and marriages that are falling apart. I've seen so many human hearts where there is such an imbalance of power. There's such an unhealthy relationship where someone doesn't understand how they can love someone so much and still have boundaries. And one of the most important things that we need to do as a community of people is to always be in vulnerable relationships with people who are hurting, with an empathy and understanding, and helping them put boundaries in place when they are being hurt. This is one way to make enemies, by the way, but it's an important one to do. Look around, listen to those around you, love those who are hurting, and make sure they have the tools necessary, the community necessary, and just sometimes the energy of your love and support to put boundaries in place on the enemies that are hurting them. That's a very important thing. 1, have enemies. 2, love enemies with boundaries. And then the most fun or moving or important is that when we love our enemies, we must love them wildly, fully, and authentically. It's the hardest part, but it's also the part that will change the world. Donald Trump is my enemy. The people that stand with Donald Trump and oppress our country, who speak ill of our LGBTQ plus siblings, who speak ill of women, who lift up and glorify war in the name of God, enemy policy, enemy decisions, it matters. I will choose to love Donald Trump, and I will choose to love his minions that hold him up in power wildly and difficultly. And the reason is this, because I refuse to become them. See, this is the magic of the school of love. When we are secure enough, empowered enough, or in community enough to have the unlocking power of loving our enemies, we no longer have the trap of the endless cycle of violence that we become them. We stand against their hate, but we don't become their hate. That is one of the hardest things we can do as human beings. It's also one of the most transformative and healing things. Jesus of Nazareth did it, and we're still speaking his name 2,000 years later. Gandhi did this. The British Empire was crushing India, and his Satyagana message was that he believed that these oppressors do not need to be punished, they need to be redeemed, because Gandhi understood that liberation of oppressed people also requires oppressors to be liberated from their oppression. He refused to hate the British Empire. He chose love and nonviolence to take down that system. Martin Luther King Jr., following the teachings of Jesus, the same thing. Abraham Lincoln even did this under the leadership of Frederick Douglass when he had to heal a nation that was broken by a civil war, and 800,000 to 1 million young men who had just killed each other, to say, how on earth are we going to reconstruct and build this broken nation? Nelson Mandela, in prison for 27 years under apartheid. He comes out, he gets power. What does he do? He creates a truth and reconciliation panel to restore oppressors to the oppression, because of this idea that there is the hope of a beloved community if we break the cycle of endless violence. The only way we can do that is if we're the kind of people who can love our enemy. It's not easy. It's super hard. But in my little short, limited life, I have found that the only love that has been truly valuable has been the love that's been hard. I mean, I love the easy stuff, the fun love that just happens and you roll into, gosh, it feels great. But what really shapes and shifts my heart and soul is the hard love. the radical love, the forgiveness on the lips of a crucified man, the black leadership who lay down their lives in a world of white supremacy to try to restore this broken nation. Those that are oppressed the most, that teach us the way of loving enemies. I have one last final thought before we come to the communion table that's a little bit of a curveball. And it actually hopefully ties together nicely with what we talked about last week, which I think is an important undergirding or base note of this entire discussion about love. Last week we talked about the ability to love ourselves. And as I was reflecting on the idea of loving enemy and naming enemies in my current life or having enemies, I was reflecting on the idea that I've also been in a lot of conversations with a lot of you and a lot of friends where this strange enemy comes up that is yourself. This becomes a very strange teaching when some of our beloved siblings in this room, greatest enemy is your own heart. It ties back into this difficult idea of loving ourselves that we talked about last week, this ability to see our trembling, unfinished souls with compassion, whereas some of us have been so trained and so forged in a world of cursing tongues and violence and anger that we've turned it inward onto our own souls. So I do want to encourage you also to know that it is possible in your own personal journey, if that's you and something you struggle with, to love yourself as an enemy. Because this radical teaching, it has a magic power of unlocking a way that our hearts can be transformed. Love yourself as an enemy. Love the family members that have become enemy. Love friends that have become enemy. Let's go make enemies by speaking truth to power so that we can love them. Because what the vision is of our community is that we will have the kind of voice and courage that it will tick the right people off. Because the people who have the most power and control and the least love in their hearts, they don't want to hear from us. They want to silence a message of simple childlike love. I'm more excited about being a part of a community that's ready to go make enemies and then love them into transformation. That is the hope of this world, and I see it all the time out of people in this community, and it's so unbelievably inspiring. I want to invite all of you to come to the communion table today, and as we partake in the performance art of bread and wine, cracker, grape juice, and little prepackaged gluten-free things, it's all so mundane. It's all so tangible. It's all so physical, but it's this way that we remember the way of being that Jesus was talking about. This image of wine and bread is an image of a body broken and blood spilt, not so that you can ask Jesus in your heart and get to soulish heaven someday, but that we can align ourselves as a way of being with Jesus of Nazareth, who got himself killed by ticking off the right people, and then by loving them through nonviolence and changing the world. So as we come to the table today, I want us to come with a posture of connection and community and being a part of this way of being that will change our families, our community, and hopefully the world. Let me pray over these elements. We celebrate an optional and an open table, so all are welcome, but don't feel in any way compelled. Let me pray. God, I'm really grateful that there is freedom in forgiveness and love. I'm grateful for the idea that we can have enemies in this world and see them through the eyes of love. Not as doormats, not boundaryless, but in the way that hopes that they will be freed of their oppression, that never gives up the hope that all can be restored to the beloved community. May we be people who live into that with courage, side by side, with each other's help and love. And we thank you for the communion table where we remember your par excellent example of this, your body broken and killed by the state with forgiveness on your lips. May we receive that same love and forgiveness and spread it to all. In Jesus' name.
You can get lost in the music for hours, honey. You can get lost in a room. We can play music for hours and hours, but the sun will still be coming up soon. The world's just spinning a little too fast. If things don't slow down, can get lost in the music for hours, honey. You can get lost in a room. We can play music for hours and hours, but the sun will still be coming up soon. The world's not forgiving of everyone's fears. The days turn into months, and months turn into years. So just for a moment, let's be still. They tear it down so we can rebuild, and all of this time is just circles in my mind. So just for a moment, just for one moment, just for a moment, let's be still. 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 The world's just spinning a little too fast. If things don't slow down, soon we might not last. The world's not forgiving of everyone's fears. The days turn into months, and months turn into years. So just for a moment, let's be still. 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 Feel free to stand with us if you'd like. We're going to close with one song. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. What a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies crying, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. What
feel like there's a lot of little moments over the years where I'm just so thankful to stay a part of a church community, and just sharing voices in harmony, singing All We Need Is Love, Love, Love feels really worthwhile to me on a Sunday afternoon to gather together and do that. So thank you for being with us and raising your voices with us, and I hope that we can leave and continue to have a conversation about the simplicity of love all the way up to its greatest complexity and radical life-changing nature. If you want to continue to hang out tonight, we're going to go to the Alpine Pizza over right downtown. If you're interested in that, they've got salad and wings and beer and whatever you want. We always say that when we leave here, that's the holiest moment of church, to go be the hands and feet and spread love to our community. Let me pray and we'll go do that. God, thanks again for music and sacraments and ancient traditions and scriptures and new conversations. And I pray that as we leave today, our minds will be filled with love, and that we will continue to stretch on and pull on the ideas of how we can love ourselves more, love our neighbors more, love our enemies more, and next week to understand the greatest love, your mother love. In Jesus' name, amen.